We are reminded this week, we are at war. When Alexander the Great lay dying, his generals gathered round and asked him, "Whose is the kingdom?" And Alexander the Great responded, "It is for him who can take it." We have to take it, or it will be somebody else. We are at war. You have to choose sides, and you have to get in the fight. Now, we need to be happy warriors, joyful. We're on a journey, and it's exciting. But it's time for battle stations. We talk here at CNP about the three-legged stool. I want to change that to the three-legged battle station. One leg is Judeo-Christian values. The other leg is free market economics. And the third is a strong national defense. And I want to add to that, we've got three kinds of warriors or specialists. We have the thinkers, strategic thinkers, scholars. We have the givers, the donors, the strategic donors. And I can tell you the executive committee is giving great thought to that, strategic donors. But we have the doers, the ground troops, the grassroots activists. And I want to remind you right now that every soldier in the Army has rifle training. And there is a time in the battle when it's all hands on deck, essentially. And folks, we have entered that time. And that's what this session is about. We're going to hear, in 30 days, America at the crossroads. The election is before us. We've got to engage. We're going to hear about what every CNP member should know about polling, messaging, and social media. We have to get it right. And we're going to hear about an issue that I think can crystallize and be the catalyst for many of our voters to get out, and that's the life issue and the abortion issue. And Gosnell is the perfect poster boy for that cause. So this is going to be an exciting session we're going to have together. Now let me remind you of a couple of things. Turn off your cell phone, or at least silence it, all right? Do that. And secondly, do not record. No audio, no video recording. This is off the record, and it allows us to have more freedom, actually, a better discussion. Okay, well, let's just get to it and talk about our first panel. You know, I was at an awards ceremony last year in D.C., and this fellow in front of me kept laughing and reacting to the speakers. He was a warrior. He was a happy warrior. His wife was running the meeting. That man was Justice Clarence Thomas, and his wife is Ginni Thomas, and she is president of Liberty Consulting. She, as you just heard a moment ago, is really rewarding and showcasing and honoring our leaders with the High Impact Award event. And I encourage you to attend that event. It was very edifying. For 8 years, she worked interviewing leaders at Daily Caller. She's got the BA and the JD from Creighton University. Today she's doing coalition work. She advises conservatives, the conservative movement. She meets regularly with conservative leaders every week in D.C. That's a very strategic meeting. But you know what I like about this today is she doesn't pop in here out of a vacuum. I can't think of a better person to speak after the last 2 weeks than Ginni Thomas. Something like this happened years ago, and she was right in the thick of it. She knows the tactics, the method. The other side is certainly at war, but she is a happy warrior. And you might not know this, but last summer, her and her husband, in an RV, took a road trip to 22 states. I think that's a good thing for a Supreme Court justice to do, to be out there with the people. And it's a good thing for an activist, a CNP activist to do. So let's welcome Ginni Thomas. She will introduce her panel. Ginni, you come to the platform.
Okay, Jerry went too far. That was so fun. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with two of my friends who are the smartest people in politics that I can imagine. Ralph Reed should have been here, but he is with a new grandchild, so we totally give him a pass today. We are going to talk about strategy and the midterms, and we have a brilliant panel for you, and it'll go fast. Adam Brandon is the president of FreedomWorks, where he's responsible for setting priorities for their C3, their C4, 2 PACs. He is one, I can't wait for you to hear him. So basically, you want to listen carefully. He and his wife Jacqueline make their home in the DC area, and he will go right after my remarks. Marjorie Dannenfelser is president of the Susan B. Anthony list, and she has been named national chairwoman of the candidate Donald Trump's pro-life coalition. She's been published in numerous media places. She serves with CAP on their executive coordinating committee and the board of Alliance Defending Freedom. She was an alumna of Duke University, and she and her husband Marty live in Arlington, Virginia, in the swamp with 5 children. So let me start out with 6 points before we go to Adam about what we're doing here. Let's connect the dots. What you've been hearing and seeing, we can't be intimidated, we can't be confused. America is in a vicious battle for its founding principles. And you and I are living through it. And we're being called to listen and act very carefully, because the hard left is in control of the Democrat Party. You can see that. They're pushing and pulling at the party. They're also controlling the media and corporations and Hollywood and education, and we're in the minority in our country. The deep state is serious, and it's resisting President Trump. And even our Senate hasn't confirmed all these nominees that help President Trump govern as a duly elected president. So we've got many battles going on. We've got over-the-top rhetoric where there's anger and hate and escalating violence. I've never seen anything like what's happening. Mitch McConnell had protesters outside of his home. These people are being attacked. There's threats on Twitter that the right could never make, but the left is saying they want to kill people who are voting for Kavanaugh. It's unbelievable. And we've seen this before. We've seen the Southern Poverty Law Center say that somebody's a hate group, and someone came into Tony Perkins' Family Research Council, didn't they? With a gun to kill people. We saw someone deranged and motivated by all this dangerous rhetoric by the Democrats and the left, who went to a Republican softball gathering and shot up as many Republicans as they could. And thank God that one of them, Steve Scalise, had security who took care of the situation with a gun. May we all have guns and concealed carry to handle what's coming, by the way. And what they've done to Brett Kavanaugh. Yes, Jerry Johnson is correct. I'm feeling the pain, Clarence is feeling the pain of going through false charges against a good man. And what they're doing is unbelievable. I thought it couldn't get worse than Clarence's, but it did. You feel it if you live in the urban areas. You see rainbow flags throughout businesses, sending powerful, subtle messages to all the customers that we're the kind, decent, compassionate, tolerant people. Until the Republican, evil conservatives show up, and those are all automatically hateful people. I see things in my veterinarian Spread kindness, build community, hate is not welcome here. You're seeing it culturally move. If political answers were it, we would be in control of this situation. We have the House, the Senate, and the White House, but look how defensive we are because they have these cultural foundations. Whether you put a Trump yard sign up, you know what it felt like if you were in an urban area. You know what it's like to tell a friend or a neighbor that you support Donald Trump. This is a different America. And so we're called to think differently and recognize the environment we're in. We're up against a fascist left who is all around us fomenting even bigger cultural revolution and change. They don't like consent of the governed. They like it when they have the power. And so this is a battle, and they're using any means necessary. Do you believe in miracles? I do too. I lived through one 27 years ago when it looked really bad for Clarence Thomas and Ginni Thomas at his side. What our adversaries mean for evil, with prayer and everybody doing their part, things can turn around. And I believe that this macro political environment we're in, if we use everything we can, you are here at CNP for a reason. Every one of you is listening to what can I do to help. And we all need every single one of you. And we need you at the next session for action items, by the way, following with these two experts and some others. So the Supreme Court, can it function with 8 justices? I hope that Brett makes it through today. I'm not counting on it till it happens and I see it. Because they're hoping that there's 8 justices and there's no swing justice. And they're going to hold the line until they get power and they take Trump out one way or another. That's what we're living through. Early voting has started in several states. 31 days. We're going to have one of those nights where we watch either a bloodbath for too many people or a surprising night that hit like 2016 when President Trump won and we got to watch all those crying moderators on media. But what happens depends on what you do after you leave this meeting. What you do, what I do, what we all do, we have to do more than we ever thought we could do. And that's why you're here listening to my friends today. So historically, the president's party loses 26 seats on average in the House. There's 43 open seats, I believe, if I heard Adam correctly. I've heard him give a speech a few times. And right now, I think Newt Gingrich did a 37-page memo that has moved around Washington and to the good guys. I know Jim Jordan was moving it around, but I haven't seen it made clear and made a decision. He wants us to lay out a national message that there's 2 competing worldviews at stake for America. And I think he's right. He thinks that right now, if it keeps going the way it was going before the Brett Kavanaugh fight, which we'll talk about as we keep going, that may have been God's blessing to us as they overexposed and went insane on America. And Democrats are walking away. Watch the hashtag walk away on social media. Democrats are scared of their party because of what they're seeing, the free speech, the tactics, the hate, the intolerance. But Newt Gingrich said, make it a big battle between 2 Americas. One is hate and violence and intimidation and the politics of personal destruction. The other is civility and rule of law and people disagreeing who can live in one place together for Pete's sake. Or Boy Scouts like Brett Kavanaugh being able to move through a process and move up the ladder of life to a successful position as a judge that's respected. But they're not going to, even if he gets in, I believe he'll get in, I'm hoping he gets in, but they're not going to leave him alone. They're trying to impeach him. They're coming for my husband. They're coming for President Trump. When they get the House, they will show with their gavels what the Republicans with gavels never even dreamt of. Think of how the Republicans wouldn't, oh, I'm out of time. Think of how the Republicans couldn't even impeach Lois Lerner for using the IRS to come after us. Jim Jordan tried, but he couldn't break through. That's just not what we do, Jim, you know. Well, look what they're going to do. So without further ado, let me move over to Adam. Take it from here. Up
Thanks
here,
very much.
Down there.
So House Democrats sent a letter to President Trump a couple days ago, and they said they promised on day one of taking the House, you know one of the first things they're promising to do? Open up investigations into Brett Kavanaugh for perjury. So even if the man gets confirmed today, this war is not over. So first of all, just to be very clear, this is Foundation, C3, so I'm going to be giving analysis. The next panel, we're going to talk about races and a little bit more specific action. I'm going to give you my lay of the land from what I see the left, what they're working on, and what I see the right, what they're doing in this election. So the first question I have, how many of you in this room are fearful that Democrats will take the House of Representatives? I'm actually encouraged seeing that many hands go up right now. How many of you think that that's all fake news? Republicans are definitely keeping the House. All right, if I would have asked this question a month ago, most people would be raising their hands. We're definitely keeping the House. So I'm spending a lot of time analyzing these different races, and I'll just cut to the start of this. Ginni mentioned it. We can give up 32 seats. But by the Freedom Works analysis, if the election was held today, we would lose somewhere between 40 and 55 seats today. Good news is there is still some time. The biggest problem that I think we face is that there's so many of our folks out there that think that there's a red wave coming. And if people who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 show up, that is a possibility. If we're not going to talk about what the specifics are right now, but there is a possibility for a red wave. But right now, every single moment, you've got to be preparing for the blue wave. And just the other day, I saw on Fox, Gallup poll shows that the GOP has the highest approval rating. I'm like, no, stop, turn that off. People, everyone here needs to be terrified about this election because it's not the polling that I'm looking at, it's the left's ground game is better than it's ever been before. So let me talk a little bit about that. I've kind of broken down what I've seen from the left and what they're doing into 5 key areas. First, immediately after Donald Trump got elected, how many of you have heard of something called indivisible? Okay, what they did is they went, this is a bunch of Hill staffers, and they actually blamed the Tea Party movement for knocking the Obama agenda off. And we're looking at all the damage Obama did. They were just getting started until the Tea Party came around. So they analyzed what the Tea Party movement did, how they organized, and they created this document called Indivisible. And when you're watching people running around the Senate getting arrested and screaming, you see their tactics in that document. So they have a strategy. The next thing that's very smart that the left is doing is the DNC is not focusing on get out the vote. They're going to their grassroots partners to focus on getting out the vote. That happened because of Hillary Clinton and the problem with Clinton and kind of throwing the race against Bernie Sanders. So they changed their tactics, realizing they had a problem with their base. And so rather than the DNC doing outreach, they're going to have their base do the outreach. Number 3, they are relentlessly focused on taking the House. All the action that you see about the Senate, they're focused on the House. All the action that you see about them taking down Kavanaugh, well, they're hoping they could take down Kavanaugh. They want to damage him, but fire up their base to take back the House. Number 4, this is another problem I have when people are like, look at this economy. Do you realize we had the lowest unemployment rate since December 1969? That is incredible. You have the lowest black unemployment in history, the lowest Hispanic unemployment in history. They do not care. That is not a campaign issue for them. It is race, it is gender, it is you fill in the blank inequality. And they are targeting their groups and they're getting them angry and they are turning them out. Let me give you a couple examples. In 2017, anybody from Virginia here? Okay. Governor Northam had 100 trained staffers that coordinated 1,000 volunteers to do nothing but text, and they sent 3.5 million peer-to-peer texts in Virginia. When you fast forward, how many of you are from Texas? All those Beto O'Rourke signs that you see, that's all been organized through text. This is the new technology that's being deployed in this cycle. Georgia, Florida, those two races, when you see how, like, shock, these very left-wing folks got the nomination. It's not shocking. Their ground game was incredible. They found their voters, they fired them up, and they turned them out. So what does this mean? So factually, there is a Kavanaugh bounce. We've seen it. We just got out of the field on a poll. Dave Bratt went from up 2 to up 5 within a couple of days.
Great.
Now, the question is, when you get a bounce, do you go up? Do you go down? Do you go straight? What happens? So we have a little bit of momentum. There's momentum for the GOP right now. The question is, how do you keep that going forward? In early races, this is something that just scares me to death. Just absolutely scares me. You remember that special election in Pennsylvania earlier that Republicans lost by about 700 votes? And the recent special election in Ohio where the congressman squeaked by about 0.5%? 50% of Democrats who voted in 2016 showed up. On average, only 38% of Republicans did. If you play those numbers out nationally, this is where we start getting to a 55% or 55-seat loss. These numbers, this is just math right now. So Trump voters are motivated by defending the president. When you poll after poll after poll shows that if you go to a Trump voter and you say, do you know that Republicans are in danger of losing the House and they're going to impeach President Trump on day one? No way. Oh my gosh, I got to get out and vote. If they think, they're like, look, it's fake news, I don't have to get out. If our folks get fired up, they will turn out. I promise you the other side is turning out their side. Another problem that we have right now is that Republicans statistically, I'm not telling you something you don't know, we're doing very poorly with suburban women. We're doing very well with Democratic men. The question is, for every suburban woman that you lose, do you gain a Democratic man? Who knows? We're about to find out in a few weeks here. Another problem that I see from my analysis is how the GOP is spending their money. When I remember those races I mentioned in Pennsylvania and Ohio, it was overwhelmingly television. Who here watches a TV ad? That era has ended. This is the future of politics, is about identifying your base and energizing them, turning them out. So I'm going to read you a quote. And I'm dyslexic, so if I stumble, please forgive me here. To save the Republican House majority, the Congressional Leadership Fund, this is the big money, guys, is focusing on a salmon hatchery in Seattle, a gas tax increase in Sacramento, and an opioid epidemic in Syracuse. The Super PAC, which House GOP leaders have endorsed to raise money for, has field offices in 34 districts. With the help of polling and focus groups, strategists identified local issues in each one they believe will motivate people who typically don't vote in midterm elections, or persuade swing voters to support a Republican incumbent in re-election even if they disapprove of President Trump. This is the worst strategy I've ever heard.
Yeah.
This is terrible. Swing voters, this is a base turnout fight. This is about energizing your base on issues that matter, turning them out. Again, the issue that motivates conservatives is Trump, defending Trump. The issue that motivates the left, taking down Trump. Here's the fight. So tax reform. You see a lot of people talking about tax reform. No one cares. That is done. Over. It's about the future. Ginni talked about this choice between two countries. It's about the future. Remember, it's mentioned the economy. The left is not focusing on the economy. So why would we, let's get our folks turned out on the issues that matter to them. So one other thing I want to remind, and then I'll close up here. The election's not in November. The election's already started in a lot of places. And a lot of the House races we feel will be decided by October 20th. So all this push to the end, it is right now. It is activating the base right now. And the reason the election will be over is the sheer amount of early voting. And this is what gets me nervous, because on the day of election in Ohio and Pennsylvania, remember Trump came in, did some rallies. The elections were already over. When the left is organized and they're getting their folks out to the polls and we're hoping that our folks turn out, I'm going to take organized action against hope any day. So that's what I'm fearful of. That's why I'm going into this election eyes wide open. So please, folks, I am fighting every minute as you are to hold, for our outcome. But right now, we're losing that house.
Join me in saying thank you to Adam for that difficult news.
Thanks a lot.
Difficult but important. Marjorie.
Thank you. I have a slide to begin. I'm going to show you some pictures that'll help me through. It is about the future. It is about the future, and there's no point at which we have grounds for more optimism when it comes to the abortion issue. It is a moment of great optimism. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we went from playing defense to playing offense on the pro-life issue, and my comments will be discussing strategy just for that issue and just for the Senate because of the incredible consequences that who is in the Senate is for the court and therefore Roe versus Wade. 31 days till midterms. Couldn't be a better time for us to talk about those things. But I do just want to inject something at the very beginning here. The life issue is not something we talk about like we talk about tax reform. It isn't something we talk about like we talk about tax deductions for office equipment, climate control, any other thing. We talk about this issue because it breaks our hearts every single day. And if it doesn't break our heart every single day, we need to think deeper, go deeper, pray harder, get our minds around the fact that 105 girls and boys die every hour in this nation. Each one of them sent for a particular purpose by the Lord that loves him or her. And without him or her, we are a suffering, dysfunctional nation. And we can bring beauty out of this horror. I love how Ginni focuses on that and has done it in her life. We can bring beauty out of this horror, but it won't be playing defense. It won't be by refraining from telling the truth. So what I'd like to talk a little bit about is how that has occurred, and I've been working hard with many of you to make that change from defense to offense over the last several years, and how we're seeing right now, by some miracle, that even the party committees are communicating well on this issue after having never communicated them at all. That the candidates themselves are doing better than they ever have done in communicating on the pro-life issue after damaging elections where, ironically, they remained in fetal positions, unable to speak because campaign consultants told them, whatever you do, don't talk about abortion. So, of course, the stumbling messages that come after you've decided not to speak can be incredibly damaging. So, the next slide, and that's actually the right slide. So, we went from the 2012 election where everything was pretty much focused when it came to the abortion issue on rape and incest and whether you had an exception on that. We saw then really good people taking kind of bad advice, doing very, very poorly, and losing elections at a moment where the Supreme Court, like it is now, was very much in the balance. So now we're focused on abortion. We're having a conversation on the national level about issues that, frankly, aren't adequate. They're not enough, but they have great consensus. Their the late-term abortion issue, 20 weeks, 16 weeks, 18 weeks. We're talking about that, and we're talking about whether you want your cash, your money, to be paying for these abortions. So those are consensus builders. And as I said, we see Senate candidates doing a beautiful job, as the president modeled at his last debate, in contrasting themselves with their opponents. So actually, I have an ad to show you that Congressman Kevin Cramer is using against Heidi Heitkamp in the state of North Dakota, in a state where we really could pick it up. Do we have that ad? Well, I'll tell you what the ad is if we don't have it.
And we've got news. We're getting ready for my sister Annie's new baby. We support our dad's strong commitment to life. Heidi Heitkamp disagrees. She even high-fived another senator after voting yes to allow late-term abortions.
She looked like she was celebrating. Late-term abortion, can you imagine?
That's why we're so proud. North Dakota can count on Dad to put life first.
I'm Kevin Cramer, candidate for Senate, and I approve this message.
This is a great example. He is so proud of that. He was so proud of it when it went on. He wants it to be echoed in every corner of North Dakota because he knows this is a winning issue. He knows it's a consensus issue. He knows what Trump did in the presidential in his own state, and he knows this will help him win. So he can do the right thing, and he can do the smart thing. And that's what we're seeing candidates do. So go to the next slide. So how we got here, I've hinted at a little bit. I think it's important to look at. We decided to focus on very achievable policies that have wild consensus, wild numbers in terms of consensus in this nation. And to start to talk about that, we put the 20-week pain-capable bill on the federal level on the map to make sure that we got votes from House members, votes from people, from senators, with the goal of winning, which of course we came up short. But we put this issue at the center then of our policy goals too. So in 20 states have passed this 20-week bill, very modest idea, and so it's building consensus over time. And then of course we inject it after we make it a policy concern. We inject it at the center of all of our highest level campaigns. And the highest level, and the one that is leading to the court that we hope is unfolding now, is the presidential election, President Trump's election. We put the pain-capable bill, taxpayer funding of abortion, defunding Planned Parenthood at the center of our election strategy for him. And we continue to do that in this election as well. Now, we always will go in, just so you know, and we will always poll to make sure we're right. Going on a hunch that we probably are right is never a good idea. So we poll before, and we watch the polls change when after that education has occurred. The next slide. So going from defense to offense meant getting the issue set right, to inject in policy and politics. But it also meant, but we also had another tactical shift. And that is to start taking this message, just as the left has done, person to person, in a retail politics, old-fashioned level, which is taking it basically to their doorsteps. This was a shift that occurred because we finally had the scale to do it, but also we knew we had to do something to change the dynamic of this issue and how we get votes for our candidates and shift the margins. So who do we talk to? We talk to people who are pro-life, who are our base, who might not be voting in midterm elections. We also talk to Hispanics, Democrats, independents, and the overlap in between, who we call persuadables because they need persuading to go from the Democratic candidate that they're inclined to vote for to the pro-life candidate, or not vote at all. We find that this issue really appeals to the persuadables in a way that many other, or almost no other Republican issue can appeal to them. So this gets to the heart. So I just have to add that at the door, when we're taking this to the doorsteps of Americans, there is something real that goes on in human-to-human conversation. And I know how important it is that we have messages on all levels, because people receive information and they think through things based on communication in a variety of ways. However, when 2 or 3 are gathered together, he is there too. And our 800 kids and old people, not a lot between, are going door to door to have these conversations every single day to the voters that I just described. Something beautiful happens. And it's, again, back because of the nature of what this issue is. They're not talking about tax reform, though it's important. They're not talking about climate control or the opioid crisis. They're talking about something so central to the soul of who they are, that there is something that happens in these conversations that I can't put a word on, but I think the Lord understands, and I definitely know that there's staying power in those conversations, that a phone call or a text or a tweet simply can't penetrate in the way that those conversations do. We know from 2014 and 2016 that this approach moves the vote by an average of 6.7% among the people that we're talking to. So we're not saying that that we're going to go to every voter and it's going to be the one issue that wins. We're saying to not go to that issue leaves votes on the table when we can't afford to do that. So I just want to give you a sense of where we are, and we are not. We are involved in a lot of House races, but we did focus all of our firepower, and we are on the Senate for the obvious reasons that we're seeing right now and today. So you can see for yourself, Claire McCaskill, Nelson, Donnelly, Huntcamp, Manchin, Tester, Brown, all sitting senators, all in red states, all states where Trump won, and this issue cuts beautifully and well and to our advantage for our candidates who are taking them on. And then, of course, we have, I left out, the people on the top, we're all going door to door for, and the folks on the bottom, we have a variety of things that we're doing. One is Generation Joshua, which I know you know well. We bring in kind of a deployment at the last minute, and we basically cover the state and in the areas where we need to be, and that's what we're doing for those 2 beautiful pro-life women who we want to see in the Senate on the bottom there. So, you know, I just want to encourage you also with one data point on the next slide that, especially at the end, you can see for yourself that the issue is wildly popular, that what we're seeing at these doors over the amount of time that we've been going in many states, over a year, that we're seeing 84% support for the 5-month paying-capable bill, and down the line. But at the end, look at the end there. In the last 2 weeks, support for Kavanaugh and Trump's nomination of Kavanaugh remained stable. And this is our base, this is our group. And not only remained stable, but in some places it went up. So I'm encouraged by that because they're seeing through the fog. And they're reacting in human ways to really vile and bad human behavior. And they're capable of seeing that there is an injustice being done and don't need to be told by the feminist left that they're anti-woman for being supportive of a pro-life candidate.
Okay, we have a little bit of time. I'm going to ask you both a question. Let's talk about the Kavanaugh effect of what's happening, because, you know, I came into being a moderator here before this all broke, when we all thought that he was obviously so well qualified, he was going to get it. And then it all shifted just a few days ago. So from what you guys on the ground politically can see and feel, talk about the Kavanaugh effect. What do you think this is going to do? Say more. You already have both said a little bit, but say more.
What we're seeing from the immediate effect of Kavanaugh, I mentioned there is a Kavanaugh bounce. It's a unifying event amongst the GOP, this general sense that this is being stolen from us. This is... You have the numbers in the Senate, the president nominated. This is the process. Elections have consequences. And when they see, I think for the base, when the base sees this as a unifying effect. The other part of the Kavanaugh effect, I do not have data for this, but this is what my gut is telling me, that when CNN and MSNBC, they're doing us such a huge favor by just showing the insanity of these protesters. Mm-hmm. I had groups, we broke down into teams of about 20 activists with a couple staffers helping them go around these Senate offices. And we're getting photo after photo of our folks going into the offices, doing what they're supposed to do, filling out their comment cards and all that. Mm-hmm. And then video of these people in pink hats, and it's this weird unification of old 70-year-old hippies and new 20-year-old hippies together, going, banging on the window, screaming and yelling, and the police coming. And America gets to see this. Mm-hmm. And this is a preview of what Congress will look like if they take over.
Yeah. Wow, I can't do any better than that, but I do want to add one thing. I was in the Judiciary Committee hearing gavel to gavel, that first one. And what was present in that room was exactly what you're describing, and very up close. And the women who, this is the leadership of the feminist left that was in that room that day, they arrived crying. And I'm not making fun of them. They literally arrived in tears. This was the moment that all the past sins of all the men who have been horrible to women, all of the sins of the moment and all the sins of the future are going to be laid on the head of this one man before he said one word in his own defense. It was shocking to me, and we've been around this a long time. The ability to be blinded is such a corrosion of the heart and mind that you can't even see, that you don't want your husband, your brother, your son to be treated like that. Why would you do that? Because the ends justifies the means, and it's completely revealed to the American people in that regard, and that's why that 74% figure was so encouraging to me. The people who are paying attention, the people we need to vote, know that. They get it. You know, it's like what Kavanaugh always quotes his mother as saying, where does your common sense take you? If you see it, so do other people.
Wow, it's very exciting, the fact that there's a resistance on our side to their side. So I just want to give a couple of closing comments here. This could be a great night on election night in November. It could be a great night. It would be a miracle, but it could be a great night, especially in the Senate. And that's what I've heard my friends in the conservative movement, including these two here, say. But it will only be a great night by a very thin margin in lots of places. So that's kind of the key here. It's not going to be any wave, I don't think. But who knows? I mean, God knows. But I don't, and the people working hard. But I think there is this force underneath. And so that puts it on us, doesn't it? It puts it on us to say, we have to do all that we can. Like pray, the St. Augustine prayer, pray as though everything depended on God, but you have to come to the action session. I'm kind of adding to Augustine. Come to the action session to find out how we will decide how to work as though everything depended on this room and hearing our voices today at this conference, at this historic time. So I'm kind of playing with St. Augustine, which probably will put me in the pit of hell somewhere.
Oh, he said he doesn't mind. Yeah.
But I do believe in miracles, and I think that if we keep working together and talking together and doing the best we can and trusting on God, I think we make a great partnership. So join me in thanking our specialists today.
Thank you. And everybody send Ralph Reed your good wishes. I don't know if you heard, but it's his first grandchild born. That's why he's not here.
Well done. Thank you, Ginni and panel. And of course, she said they're going to be invited, you're invited to the action section later. There'll be a panel, and they'll be talking